Sarah, I don't know about in India, but here in the US for sure, there's an idea that we call the prosperity gospel that's pretty popular. It's the idea that if we follow the Lord and if we obey him, then essentially life will be very rosy. We'll have wealth and health and good success in life. And even for those of us who completely reject that idea, it can still be very disorienting and demoralizing when we are seeming to walk with the Lord, but still struggling with mental health or some of these disorders. So, do you think is it possible for someone who does have a strong faith and who's walking with the Lord to struggle with mental health, or how would you respond to somebody who raises that question?
It's a question that I think counsellors have had when I've been talking with them. Just even general conversations, the idea that as a believer, as a Christian, we should feel happy all the time. I have been in church when people have said, hands up if you're happy today, and everyone's raising up their hands. And I'm kind of squirming at that point in time, because I think Scripture doesn't tell us anything about that we should be feeling happy all the time. It talks about rejoicing in all circumstances, but we understand rejoicing as a much deeper, emotion. It's about our relationship with the Lord. It's not about our outward circumstances. And I think that's a lot of what Paul is getting at the end of Philippians 4, when he says, I've learnt to be content in both good circumstances and bad circumstances. In that same passage, he's talking about rejoicing and calling us to rejoice. So just coming back to kind of where, like, that question of can we have weak faith, or is that the reason for struggles that we're having of the mind or in any other sort of situation? No, an absolute no. I think as counsellors, we love the Psalms. Raja has mentioned about the Psalms a few times already, but the Psalms give a realness and a rawness of life and the expression of that I think is there in a few other portions of Scripture, but in such a full way. And it's the full range of emotions too. It's the sadness, it's the lowness, it's the downcast soul, as well as the exuberance and joy and celebration of life. It's all there. And so I think one of the things that is a blessing to us is to have that expression, and to know that many of these Psalms were written by David, King David, and Scripture tells us that he is a man after God's own heart. And so we know that God he was with David. And so let's take Psalm 23, for example, a psalm that I think many people know, that middle portion where he talks about, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And the reason that he says, I will fear no evil, is because God is with him. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me, they guide me. But there's just a little expression of a man after God's own heart talking about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Now, it could be experiencing grief from a loved one dying. It could be his life in danger. It could be a struggle with low mood. And just like that example of Paul praying for the thorn to be removed in his flesh, we don't know what it is, but it could be some kind of just a struggle that we're experiencing. And so if King David is having these struggles, if Paul is having these struggles, I think we can be confident that it is not a weakness of faith, that it is a situation that we are experiencing. And just coming back to that reference of Romans 5, of suffering producing perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope that does not disappoint. There is work that God is doing through the suffering, and so faith is strengthened. Our trust in the Lord is strengthened, and so without things that strengthen our faith or grow our faith, I guess we're going to we're going to continue to be infants. And so I really would just want to say again, no, an absolute no. It's not a weakness of faith. And I'm thinking of one counselor that I have who has struggled with low mood, with depression. And I think one of the joys for me is seeing her constantly turning to God in the midst of that. So she will wake up in the morning and she says to me, I just feel like I can't do anything. I just want to curl up and stay in bed. But God has been helping her to keep turning to him and to get out of bed, even though she doesn't feel like it, or that she doesn't have the strength to do that. And what a joy it is for me to witness, not a weakness of faith, but incredible faith in trusting God to do the next step of getting out of bed and getting on with the day. So they're just a few thoughts. But please know it's not a weakness of faith, because this is something I hear so often, or you're not praying hard enough, or you're not reading enough scripture. That is not true.
I just want to add that, there's the Old Testament Elijah, and he did this great miracle, the powerful thing on Mount Carmel where he brought fire from heaven and, it burnt up the sacrifice. And after doing that, and, they killed off all the prophets of Baal. And immediately after that, he runs away. He's fearful for his life and he's very depressed. And sitting under the tree is a classic example of depression there. So the great prophet Elijah was depressed, and the angel had to come and help him and, revive him. So there are examples, plenty of examples from scripture.